Well, it's a record-breaking storm. It's extremely intense, very impactful. It brought not just Toronto, but surrounding areas to a standstill.
Back to Closer Look. Hope you had a great weekend. I'm Scott Sexsmith with Michael Friscolanti, our editor-in-chief here at Village Media. I'll tell you one thing. I'm sick of winter, but I am also thankful that I do not live in the GTA.
Yeah, there is this. We're going to get hate mail right off the top of the
Right
show.
off the top.
But
Let's go.
I do kind of giggle because I'm from Southern Ontario, grew up in the Hammer, proudly from the Hammer.
Yes.
Live in Northern Ontario now, and I always laugh because back home they get a little bit of snow and everybody goes crazy.
But this wasn't a little
But this was not a little bit.
No.
We've been hit like usual. It's been a nasty winter snow, but we're used to it. We have the room to move it around. But I always say to people who from the north who are when you're down there, it's different because there's just such a density of population. There's people everywhere. There's roads everywhere. So they just can't handle even a little bit of snow knocks your bill. But this is record-breaking snow we're seeing down there.
Yeah, and if you're in downtown Toronto or in a heavy populated core, like where do you put this stuff?
Yeah.
Like there's no place to put it.
There's no place to put it. In Burlington, city councilor put out a Facebook post today saying, are you a high school student, need some volunteer hours? Shovel out some people who need help, and I'll sign off on your volunteer hours.
What a great idea.
It's a great idea, so I'm hoping they should be doing that in other places. So I'm sure they just had a mad rush of teenagers with snow shovels in Burlington.
When we talk about how much, there was an interesting tweet from Carolyn Parrish. She's the mayor of Mississauga. Here's what they've done to date. 5,700 kilometers of roads cleared, 2,450 sidewalks done, 3,300 bus stops, 127 kilometers of multi-use trails, and 134,000 residential driveway windrows cleaned up.
That's crazy.
With 818 pieces of equipment.
See, I wouldn't have assumed that Mississauga has that kind of snow power. Right, they don't get that much snow.
Well, maybe they learned from 1999 when Toronto had to call in the military.
Yeah, and as far as I know, we're going to confirm this with our guest today. But this was the largest 24-hour snowfall in Toronto's history. Was on Sunday.
Yeah,
so it's pretty crazy. So this isn't the weather's not the hardest news in the world, but it's still the thing we love to talk about the most. We had Dave Phillips on a couple months ago, the legendary climatologist, talking about how we're just obsessed with weather. So we're going to talk weather today. Who's coming on?
Kim MacDonald. I mean, anybody who watches Canada's Weather Network has seen Kim in your kitchen or your living room over the years. She's wonderful, and it's going to be a great conversation and find out just exactly what has happened in Southern Ontario over the last 48 hours. Shovel and snowblower sales in the GTA this weekend must have set records. If you stepped outside and thought, this can't be real, the bad news is it was, and very real. Cars buried, streets vanished, flights grounded, the GTA brought to an absolute standstill. This wasn't just a snowstorm. It was the kind that shuts down a city. Tonight, we're very pleased to be joined by a very familiar face in our country, Kim MacDonald from the Weather Network. Kim, welcome to Closer Look. Great to have you here tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Kim, for people who woke up to buried cars and impassable streets, how would you describe just how intense this storm was?
Well, it's a record-breaking storm. It's extremely intense, very impactful. It brought not just Toronto, but surrounding areas to a standstill. 56 centimeters of snow recorded in downtown Toronto. That's an all-time record for a daily snow event. 46 centimeters at Pearson Airport, that's a daily record. And for Toronto, downtown hasn't seen that kind of snow since the 1940s. So even if we're talking about the Mel Lastman Army event, which was 27 years ago, I mean, that was a ton of snow as well, but they just didn't have the same kind of snow removal, and they're not going to do it this time around. But that was, I mean, for the Mel Lastman situation, that was 111 centimeters in 2 weeks, in the first 2 weeks of January in 1999, and that was enough to knock everything out. But it's still 56 centimeters downtown Toronto is very significant.
That's crazy. Yeah. Were we close to calling the military, or are we still far away from that?
I don't think they want to do it. I think Olivia Chow is like, no, we're good. We're good. Unless we get another 56 centimeters at the end of the week, which we don't, we're not expecting. I think it should be okay.
I feel like they would never ever be able to do that ever again, no matter how bad it was, just because of that. We're still making fun of that. It's the first thing we said 27 years later. We're still making fun of that.
Seriously, yep.
So, Kim, at what point did this shift from a big winter storm to, okay, this is going to be a really big winter storm?
This is interesting because we were watching this storm and its impacts in the United States. We knew that that was going to happen, the freezing rain and the snow in places that don't normally see it. And we were paying close attention to what that would do to, say, the southern United States. And then we started to slowly see this event, creeping ever so farther north. And suddenly we're like, you know what? This is going to be impacting southern Ontario, not northern Ontario, not this time around. This is just going to sideswipe southern Ontario, southern Quebec, Atlantic Canada. And I had an interview with Dr. Doug Gillum, who is one of our chief meteorologists here at the Weather Network. He does long-term forecasting. He does the seasonal forecasting when we say, what's winter going to look like in Canada. He's the guy. So I interviewed him on Thursday early afternoon, and he said, with the lake effect bands on this storm that are setting up ahead of the system itself, I would not be surprised if someone saw between 40 and 50 centimeters.
Wow.
Now, I didn't put that in my story because you can't 3.5 days out, you can't make that kind of prediction without sounding like you're scaremongering, right? So I took the quote instead where he said some areas could get well over 30 centimeters and went with that because, the difference between 30 and 50, people are prepared for, they're still expecting a lot of snow and they're not going to be upset that it was, 50 and not 30. They'd be upset if it was 50 and not 10. But once you say you're likely going to see 30, people pay attention.
I hope your follow-up on the network today is go back and say, doctor was right. He's bang on.
I know. Well, I didn't include it in my story because I said I have to be more prudent. But he was right, and I give him kudos. And yes, I should say that on the air today.
You should,
that he definitely did predict it, but it's a hard thing to put out there because it's just,
What's a crazy number? Who would believe 50 centimeters? That's nuts, right? Yeah. Well, what struck me too, Kim, was this is maybe a dumb question, but last night, all the schools are being canceled last night, right? Which I don't recall ever seeing. Do you ever see that where it's the night before and they're canceling schools?
I don't see that. I always see the morning of, early morning, day of. That's usually when they make the call. It was a good thing this was on a Sunday. I can say that because a lot of people didn't have to travel, which was good news. But they were making the call knowing that, all they had to do is look out their window to see those snowfall rates that were just so incredible. Put it into perspective. Pearson Airport gets traditionally about 31 centimeters in the month of January, the entire month.
Yes. Wow.
And they saw that in a matter of hours on Sunday.
That's wild. So do we know how many flights we can? Any word? Is it thousands?
Thousands, yeah. And because the flights were canceled in major hubs stateside too, right? So you have to, so it's all a domino effect. If it's, if there's canceling flights in Chicago, that might interrupt Pearson and Montreal and so on and so forth. So yes, there were a lot of stranded passengers. My daughter was one of them. She was visiting Montreal for the weekend, couldn't get back to Toronto, hoping to get down. She lives in the Cayman Islands. So she goes, well, I'm stuck here right now and no word on when I'll be able to get out.
No 50 centimeters of snow in the Cayman Islands.
She probably can't wait to get home.
Yeah, there's nothing.
Yeah, she can't wait.
Let me ask you this, Kim. I'm a news guy. I've been a journalist, I feel like, for 100 years. The news still gets my blood going. I get excited. You've been in the weather business for a long time. How excited do you still get about big storms like this or big weather events like this?
Yeah, I do get excited about it. And everybody here does too. That's, it's hard though. There was people, working all weekend long on this storm and they would put them up in hotels here at the Weather Network. They don't mess around. They don't want anybody, driving in that kind of weather. And they want their people here. So you say, okay, you can stay at a close hotel, but people were leaving here and then trying to shovel their cars out. They were buried, but, it's one thing when you're talking about it, another thing when you're actually living it as well. But yeah, we all, the meteorologists, the on-air people, everybody kind of gets psyched for these kinds of events. And, you don't see this very often.
For sure.
Kim, is it fair to say that the GTA was prepared for this onslaught?
Hard to say. I hope so. I mean, we had the word out pretty early. The numbers kept going up as far as the accumulation forecast. So they would have known at least by Thursday that they were in for an event. The thing is, with lake effect snow, you don't know where that band is going to lie exactly. Right. So the fact that it was aiming directly at Toronto, that's a big deal. I live in Hamilton, and we got snow, but maybe 24 centimeters, nothing like what happened in Toronto because we missed the lake effect band with this storm. So I'm hoping they were prepared. It sounds like one of our guys was talking to the city manager in Toronto, and he was feeling pretty confident about this. I think it's if you get a succession of these storms. Plus, that snow's not going to melt. Let's be honest. No. It is very cold here and will continue to be cold for the next week. I think maybe -8 by Sunday, which is still about 6 degrees below normal. But yeah, that's an issue. So I'm hoping they were prepared. I'm glad they made the call to close schools, not just in Toronto, but in all the surrounding areas ahead of time, and just get people off the roads and get those plows out and clearing the streets.
And now that it's over, Kim, what's the advice you give to viewers who are, kind of stuck at home? Their driveways are full of snow. Maybe they're older. What kind of advice do you give to people during big events like this?
Yeah, well, get somebody else to shovel your driveway if you're an older person. Obviously, shoveling snow can be very dangerous. This is light, fluffy snow because it was so cold. So that's a positive. It's not the heavy, wet snow we're used to around here because of the Great Lakes. But yeah, because it's so cold, you're already going to have some vasoconstriction. So your heart's already going to be pumping because of the cold, and you add in the shoveling, that's going to be a problem. So check on your neighbors if there's anybody you're concerned about. If you have a snowblower, maybe you can help out your neighbors with that. Make sure your sidewalks are clean in front of your home as well, and your cars are out of the way so that the snowplows can get through.
I just saying to Scott, you'll probably love this, Kim. In Burlington, a city councillor put out a Facebook post today saying, if you need your volunteer hours for high school, get out and shovel your neighbor's driveway and I'll sign off on it. You ever heard of that before?
I have not, but I love it.
Yeah, you'll have to.
I mean, the kids are off school, so get your volunteer hours today.
Yeah, for sure.
That's right.
You could probably get all 40 of them in the next
next couple of days. I know.
Kim, weather obviously a big part of your life, as we talked earlier. What's your favorite season?
Summer.
Yeah.
No hesitation. No hesitation.
It's funny because I love to talk about winter storms more than I like to talk about, severe thunderstorms and tornadoes. But I like to live in the summer versus the winter. So personally and professionally, they're two different things. Tornadoes are extremely hard to predict. You can say there's a chance, but where they're going to happen and when they're going to happen is difficult. Big snowstorms you can see coming from a long way away, and you have more of a heads up, and you can prepare for them better. So I tend to like those.
Absolutely. Perfect segue into, I think, will be the last question. Kim, thanks again for all your time. This is eventually going to end. When is it going to end? When are we going to see the end of all this snow? When will the spring begin this year?
Are we waiting for the groundhog? I don't know.
We're hoping.
Well, our predictions at the beginning of this winter was that it was going to be a cold, snowy winter, that it was going to be a traditional winter, even though this is breaking records from decades and decades ago. I don't see the end yet, at least the beginning from now until the beginning of February. It's still quite cold. So, the one good thing, Lake Erie has frozen over. So that means no lake effect snow. Buffalo can take a break, and anybody impacted by Lake Erie's snow. But until all of those Great Lakes freeze over, we're still in winter.
Well, it can't come soon enough. There's Kim MacDonald from the Weather Network. She's on the air right now. Check her out tonight. Kim, great to see you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
It's amazing. Of all the things in the world to talk about, the one thing that always seems to bring people together for a good conversation is the weather, and that will never change.
It's the go-to conversation.
It really is.
If there's going to be hammer and snow like this, we'll always be talking about that.
Absolutely. Great to have Kim on the show tonight. Tomorrow night, though, we're going to pivot a little bit to a subject that is a little sensitive, and certainly so for a Saskatoon man.
Yeah, this is the Humboldt Broncos bus crash.
Right,
and, you just have to say those words, and you know exactly what we're talking about. This happened. I had to go back and look. It was 2018 when this terrible crash happened. And it was April. I'll never forget it. We all kind of remember the moment that news kind of started spreading that there was this terrible accident. And, but in the end, we learned that there were 16 people killed on that bus. And it was just so Canadian in every way. Right? The hockey teams across the country, sports teams across the country spend their seasons on these buses, driving all over rural highways, all over Canada. Just like these guys were heading to a big playoff game. If I remember right, it's a big playoff game. If I remember right, I could be wrong, but they won a big, like, triple overtime game in this playoff series they were in. And we're on the road back to play the next game, and they were on their way, and they came through an intersection, and as we all know, a truck kind of barreled through the stop sign and hit the bus as head on as you can, and the photos of it that we saw later were just awful. And, terrible for the fans. It was a national tragedy, and as you said, you remember, the country came together putting hockey sticks on their front porches. You remember all that? I
remember doing it.
And and it's been one of those stories that it went on for years. And when I say go on, it's going to be in our conscience forever. We remember that story. And there's been lots of layers to it. There was, the mourning, the national mourning over the tragedy. Families trying to do something in honor of their sons, to remember them, to honor them. Then there was the whole criminal trial with the driver, who was eventually convicted and sentenced. There was a civil lawsuit that went on, and it's kind of been back on the news because there's a Netflix new series that they've kind of teased that revolves around a bus crash involving some young hockey players.
Yeah. Now Netflix is saying it's not based on what happened, but it's set in a working class town where hockey is everything until a bus crash kills players and their coach.
Yes, and some parents of the kids who passed away or who were injured in that crash are a little bit upset that this is happening and have some thoughts on it, and we're going to speak to one of them tomorrow.
Yes, we are. Scott Thomas, who's a 16-year-old son, Evan, died in that crash. We're going to talk to Scott. He's been pretty vocal about his position on what Netflix is doing with this production. So that's coming up tomorrow night.
It'll be a powerful conversation for sure. And I think just a good reminder, people, about, to just don't take any day for granted, right? Enjoy those times, because these kids were doing the thing they loved the most, playing hockey. At the height of the season, it was the playoffs. It's going to be a good conversation, I think.
All right, that's Scott Thomas tomorrow night on Closer Look. That's it for us this evening. Closer Look at villagemedia.ca is our email. Reach out anytime. We'd love to hear from you. Tonight's show produced by Derek Turner for Michael Friscolanti, our editor-in-chief here at Village. I'm Scott Sexsmith. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, right here on Closer Look.
Frisco and Scott's Wardrobe provided in part by Moores, Sault Ste. Marie.